Hello, BBH. Surprise, we're back. And, well, it's over. BBH18, it's basically done. It's basically there. And all my opinions tonight are brought to you by Austin East Cider, specifically their Blackberry Cider. All of production tonight, I believe, for the most part, is drinking. And their opinions will be brought to you by whatever alcohol of choice they brought. Joining me, I'm just going to randomly click someone in. And that person. It's Tay.
In my opinion, brought to you by weed and Topo Chico.
Brought to you by weed and Topo Chico. Next person.
I'm drinking Sapporo, and I'm not even going to try and make a connection.
What are you drinking?
Sapporo.
What is that?
Sapporo.
It's good. It's a Japanese
beer. Japanese beer. It's premium.
It's a lager. It's good.
Great.
All right. Hopefully, some better alcohol in the next person. Mitch Stokes.
Well, it's over. I'm drinking it's called Storm Brew. It is the official beer of the Carolina Hurricanes, which is like our best sports team in North Carolina. So they made their own beer.
Alrighty, we somehow got worse. K-Pow.
Cheers to great season. My opinions are brought to you by Cucumber Lime Seltzer, Michelob Ultra Seltzer.
Much better. All right, and finishing us off, he is making a drink literally because he got here right before we started. We told him get a drink, bitch. It's Max Teddy.
This is like literally the only alcohol I have in my house is Tanqueray gin, and I guess I'm just gonna do like gin and coke.
Gin and coke?
I'm gonna throw up.
I like gin.
What?
I love gin, but I've never done that before. So,
just
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, period.
Just drink it right from the bottle.
Oh my god.
Peer pressure, Max. Do it right now.
I mean, there have been worse combinations.
Yes.
Subversion Season 3 and All-Stars alumni Samya on her All-Stars portfolio said her favorite cocktail or mixed drink of choice was Coke and beer. So honestly, I don't have much room to judge because that shit sounds fucking vile and nasty. But we're here to discuss the end game and like our thoughts and opinions, and maybe I'll be back tomorrow to like recap the final three. I don't fucking know. We'll see if I'm in the mood. But we gotta finish the season. Alrighty.
Can we do, before we start this, can we do what is everybody's rankings of the season? Or how do you how do you feel about the season right now, like pre-finale? Where is it gonna rank for you? Like if you had to put a number to it, or if you just like give it a letter grade, like
it's in the moment, I think it's like an A- for me. On episodes, it's going to be bad. I'm telling you all right now, like the episodes are going to be dominated by certain people because they understood the assignment and did the confessionals, and there are certain key players who did not understand the assignment, and their stories will very much be missed. So episodes wise, it's going to be very bad. But I think as a season, A- A or A-, I gotta reflect, but depending on the winner, God, that's so shady, it might go lower. And no offense, because ultimately I think the winner should embody the season, and I think there is a particular player, not that I'm rooting against them, I think all three people have played well. I think there is a player still left in the game that does not embody the season, so I think for them to win, it would detract a little bit from the season for me.
Tell us in the private chat who you're talking about, unless you want to say their name.
I'll say it's Preston. I don't think Preston has embodied this season, this particular season. I think he's played very well. I don't think he's embodied this season.
I've been thinking about this, though. Not me in my defending Preston era.
Be my guest.
I think Preston played a very similar game to Lauren Murphy. And when I started looking at it through that lens, we were very high on her win. So if Preston were to win,
yeah,
it's not that I'm not high on a Preston one. I just don't think he embodies the season. I think he's way more similar to Elise, in my opinion. I think Elise played very socially. No one was after him, and at the very end, won some key comps, cut the right people. If he wins, obviously because he wins the final HOH and he cuts Fozer, then that's how he wins.
The beauty of this game is that it is not up to us who embody
No.
season.
No.
But no, but the thing I will say about Preston is I was reflecting on, and I said this in the VL, I think that if you look back, Preston, you can say Preston had a decent social game. I mean, very strong with some, very weak with others. But it is not like he was the total floater that was just always safe no matter what, because there were a couple of people, especially after Michael Brady was sowing those seeds, there were a couple of people that were very much after him and wanted him out. And it just never happened.
Well, they never won power.
And yes, it's partly that, but Michael could never influence the right people to take the swing. And I think that is a testament to having a strong social game. And so I am higher in these past few days.
I do think that all three of the people who are left, like Foser, Madison, and Preston, kind of embodied sides or factions that were dominating the game. Like you have Foser with like his side of Ashley and Frankie and that, and then Madison with Sam and Lauren and Michael, and then Preston, who was like a person who was playing the middle with Gabby and Karthik. So I actually think it's really cool that at the end game there's all three groupings of people still represented, and it'll be interesting to see what the jurors value more, whether it's that middle game or like fully on a side.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing that you say that about K-Pow is the only thing that probably is not less, but less pronounced in Preston's game, maybe, is that Madison and Foser had to actually make moves to say what side they were on, whereas I think Preston was kind of put into a side without having, like, there was a point where the middle became a side, and I think that he got kind of lumped in that without his own consent. Whereas the other two had more active roles in picking their side.
For sure. Yeah. Any other thoughts on the final three?
Overall, the season as a whole for me gets an A. I don't know if it's my all-time favorite, and I am only going from 13 on because I have not gone back and watched. So sorry, Lee and everyone.
It's better that you didn't see 11.
Yeah, 11's not good.
But yeah, I don't know if it's my favorite top season that I've been around for, but it's up there for sure. Top 2, maybe top 3.
For me, I'm giving the gameplay an F, but I'm giving the season an A.
No, for sure. I mean, AJ Norris read these hoes 2 weeks ago where he's like, they're all playing awfully. And I'm like, no, you're right. The fact that everyone knows where everyone stands in the game is not good. Like, you should we should not be at the top 13 or top 12 and everyone can take a step back being like, I see all the pieces on the board. I know where everyone's at. That's awful. And again, it's not because people were leaking shit. It's not because people were leaking shit. It's because people were just like how they were talking and how people could imply great reads. I mean, people made really great reads to make those, predictions as to where people were, but like that goes to the fact
but also people knew because nobody talked to the other side either. Right. So like each side would ghost the other side, and it's just like, oh, that's clear.
Also
which makes the entertainment value an A.
Yeah. But though, these people weren't lying enough.
Girl, not everybody likes to lie like you do.
Yeah.
Okay? Not everybody's pathological like you, okay?
Michael Brady had good strategy though. Like I would say he was one of the people in the game who was seriously like him just making the secret alliance, even though he went about it an absurd way, he knew that he had to shift from his side to make it any farther in the game. And he was pretty strategic the whole time.
It's just the execution.
Yeah.
Which thankfully he's aware of. Like when we talked today,
he seems very
he was very
aware. I definitely this season definitely has been an A. I mean, this will not be one of my favorite winners regardless of who wins.
My parents.
Oh, the Moon.
My parents.
Maddie Moon was robbed twice at gunpoint in broad daylight, and Josh has not paid her.
That's true.
what he
In
owes
fact,
her.
that was when you had to pay to play BBH. So Josh has taken Maddie's money, honestly.
Yeah, robbed her.
He took mine.
Pay
He
to
took
play
mine. He took Max's 3 times, twice.
Well, I want it
It's-
back, so.
That's
It
true.
sounds like we need to file a class action.
Get
I'll find
change.org
out.
petition.
But yes, I think this season's been great. Yeah, it won't be one of my favorite winners by any means. I think in my heart that was reserved for Lauren.
Same.
Had
I think
she done it. I feel like the story arc was there. Like none of them have a story arc that like makes me like.
Carl, you might want to tell your boyfriend not to watch this morning tea episode.
I don't care. Has he played well? Yes. If he wins, if he wins, he deserves the win. But the story arc, like I'm not like dying over the story arc.
So, Foster, because I know you're gonna watch this back. This is like a conversation we've been having or at least I've been having. I don't know if people actually agree with me or not. Are they just placating me? You think your story is one of a woe is me, the game is against me. And I'm sorry to break the bubble that it was not. You didn't get your way because you chose not to push to get your way a lot of the time. And getting your way does not mean not getting your way doesn't mean the game is against you. Yes, you got screwed by the wheel. That was about the one point in time the game was against you. Literally, the game was against you.
I am of an interesting school of thought here on this while we're on the Foster topic, because I think that part of that is like how we train orgers who have played multiple times. Like Foster came in and breathed and everyone's like, Foster's a threat. Like that is true. That we know to be true. So if Foster tried to push any single agenda, like, and here's the thing, he was already seen as a threat, so he probably could have pushed agendas, and he's not going to be seen as any more or less of a threat. However, in his own mind, he's trying to maintain that threat level. So if he's already thinking someone's down his throat for literally just existing, if he tries to push something, does he not even make it here? And so I think that's,
I don't know. I just disagree because he had such strong opinions on the way things that he wanted them to go.
Sure, yeah, I agree.
I don't agree with certain elements of like, because he wrote up a whole dissertation that we shared at some point in the VL about like the things that he felt like has gone wrong and that have supported this like underdog edit for him of having to like overcome these things. Like, do I agree with the Marcus statement? No, not at all. Like, I don't agree with that. Like, ultimately, like votes were there, probably not all at the same time, but like that wasn't a shot at you, nor was it an effect because of you. It was just because people were flip-flopping all day, and the move just never came together. When Lauren stayed in the round 3, that's because you and Ashley decided to fuck around and find out, and y'all did. And she got away to the final 4, so like you fucked around and you definitely found out. The wheel,
even
sure,
going on the blog. Like I know we talked about it. He could have stopped that from happening, and he chose not to.
Sure.
Yeah. Yep. Sure. Like Karthik not using the veto on Michael. Sure. Michael winning the battle back. Sure. But like, there's just a lot of things. He's like, these all things were against me, and I'm like, they weren't what you wanted. But they weren't
I worry about him tomorrow if he does make the finale and he goes into the finale and the questions with like the game was against me. Everyone was like, everything was coming down around me. And the rest of these jurors are going to be like, girl, what? Like they're literally, they think he has played an out in front dominant game from start to finish. And then if he walks in and is like, I had such a hard time getting through this game, it was against me. They're going to be like, girl, shut the fuck up and sit down.
I agree with you.
What, Max?
I still don't think he's faced a final vote. Is that right?
No,
he hasn't.
He's never been a final nominee.
No.
But he wouldn't be here had he done that. So
correct. Had he been a final nominee,
I disagree.
In this game.
No, I disagree. At final 6, he would have. At final 6, we sat there on the morning of the final 6 vote, and you and I both said that he wouldn't leave.
But then Michael started to consider it because Michael was like, I'm definitely not going to. But then as the day went on past morning tea, he was like, maybe I should. Maybe I should. So
but with Preston and
Michael
Lauren,
said it today.
Preston and Lauren, it wouldn't have mattered. Preston and Lauren would have voted to evict Gabby anyway.
Oh, I don't think Preston. I mean, Preston was promising under the sun, but who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we already covered that. Who knows what he actually would have?
I think to your point, Stokes, like I think both can be true. Like I think he played an out front and dominant game, but you can't deny that there were luck elements that were very much against him. Like he's the one person that wins the HOH whose person evicted doesn't count because of the split house effect and the battle back. He gets wheeled onto the nomination block due to the carousel chaos. Like there are things that definitely did not go in his favor, or like the Ashley thing when he goes out at live night. Like there are definitely things that were against him. So I think both of those things can be true. I think he just needs to own his high highs and also talk about his low lows and say that this was really more about peaks and valleys for him rather than just saying he started on the bottom and stayed there. Because that's not what happened.
Agree, but also the person that he evicted at live night ended up being in a secret alliance with him and controlling the game for
literally how many of those things that you just listed negatively impacted his game?
But Michael coming back and then evicts Ashley. So like there are things that still
Ashley got herself evicted and she knows it. Like unfortunately.
And that's the tea. Because ultimately, I mean,
and if Foser,
Michael did what for Foser?
And Foser made his own bed in that round because he yeeted himself out of the live night. So as he should have, but he can't be mad about or upset about the things that happened at the live night because he wasn't there. Okay.
No, sure.
I think, and I don't want to belabor this, but like the split house thing forced him to show cards ahead of time that he would have. Like we've all said, even Michael said this in the exit interview. Like had it never been a split house, I still stand by the fact that we did the split house. Like I loved it.
It was fantastic.
Like had we not done the split house, Foser probably does not nominate Sam and Michael. He probably honors that short-term deal he had with them. Never had to show the cards. Therefore, Michael doesn't get evicted knowing Foser breaks the tie against him to come back and then have this thing against him. So it's like I feel like there were points in time where Foser had to mature his game too fast and continue to show why he did have that target.
Sure.
Regardless, so it's like some of the moves he made were negated by other things, or like he won a veto, but he won a veto not even having to, like he wasn't even nominated by a person. He was nominated by the wheel. And it's a wonderful thing to say, let's evict the person nominated by the wheel, because that's no blood on anyone's hands. It's just bad luck.
Yeah. I think you're fair. Just none of it negatively impacted him in any way. Any of those things that happened, he came out the other side with a better allegiances, better alliances, better positioning in the game. Even though he had to go through them, he came out the other side better, and no one was, actively making a move against him. No. I want to make it clear, Foser, I love you. I adore you. You've played a great game, and when you win tomorrow, you deserve it. This is not me. I'm just like pointing out a, thought.
I think a lot of the woe is me stuff though happened pre-jury really, and has kind of just like clouded over still because it was very woe is me and dramatic. But his game changed so much after pre-jury, which to me is when he started playing really, really well, is when he showed that flexibility and talked to Michael. Before those times, he was just woe is meing and not talking to the other side and not trying to maneuver anything really. So when he started actually maneuvering and being flexible and working with the other side and talking to people, making deals with Lauren, making deals with Michael, is when his game improved. Like,
and I would even argue like the losing Keisha in the beginning while he kind of pushed for that, it was maybe one of the best things that happened to him, because that woe is me stuff forced him to be flexible. So, or at least it forced his mindset into thinking he had to be flexible. So
he had a lot of time to think about it without power.
Once he realized once he realized that he needed to play like his game for himself and not go with the vibe of the house, I think is when things started to change.
I mean,
but even him losing power, sorry. I was thinking about this earlier today that Lauren wanted to nominate him. Had he not lost power that round, he would have been on the block. So like some things, he's had luck, even on losing power is terrible. And I know it was a terrible time and I felt really bad. It ended up being lucky for him.
Yeah, exactly. It worked out.
Yeah.
No, literally, that Lauren has saved. I mean, Lauren has saved his life at least once there, and possibly twice at the final 6, depending what Michael and Preston ultimately had. She left the noms the same. Had they had a discussion, who knows what happens there? We don't know. We'll never know because Preston
truly,
was promising, and Michael was saying.
It is kind of wild to think about, like how Foser was so close to leaving early on, like round 3, 4, 5. Yep. But like as a backdoor target, or then but then he loses power, and so he kind of gets in like with the good grace of people. They give him some leeway, right? But then think about too, like Preston by all measure should have been 11th place again. Like legitimately should have gone home at live night when with Madison and Sam as the voters, should have voted to evict him.
Yeah.
Like, and he would have been in the battle back.
Who knows if he wins the battle back with Jodely being at work making Whoppers.
Right.
Trying to compete. So, who knows?
Right. Exactly.
I'd say anyone would have won that battle back, but
probably. But like
probably.
It's just such an interesting thing to look at, like with them two specifically. And I'm racking my brain. I don't think Madison was actually ever in any danger of leaving. So good for her on that. But like both of them were in 2 of our final 3 were so close to leaving the game at points in time.
I mean, we've talked about Foser in length. I mean, Preston's game is really marked by playing the middle, being liked by a lot of people, and never being the main target on either side, or even being the main target in the middle. I mean, how once the middle started getting targeted, it was Judy and Keisha who were getting targeted for being the middle players, and then Karthik ends up becoming a travesty out of that as well when Preston's right there. So ultimately, I mean, just hiding behind a bunch of shields and, the right people winning power, and ultimately him really coming alive at the end game to make, hopefully, if Lauren and Foser are to go out in 4th and 3rd, those are the most ideal outcomes for him to put him in a key position to win the game. Let's give some love to Madison, because I think, another player who did not have a strong pre-jury. Sorry, my love. You did not. She was playing another game. And then when she got voted out, I think at the top 13 or top 12 rounds, when she got voted out of the other game, she really came alive into this game. I mean, she has Lauren to thank a lot for her early game. Madison gets in with Lauren very early on day 0 or day 1. They have a call, and that became their bond in this game. And Lauren ends up looping in Madison into the carousel group that becomes Michael, Sam, Lauren, and Madison, because really it was only supposed to be a trio between Michael, Sam, and Lauren. But Madison becoming this 4th wheel, she gets being the glue to this group for pretty much the entire game, as dysfunctional as they fucking were every fucking round of the jury, because they weren't winning power. In the pre-jury, they were winning power left and right. They had Lauren in round 1, Sam in round 4, Lauren in round 5, and then the jury hit and they won fucking jack shit. And Madison was the fucking glue to them to keep them fucking together from fucking biting each other's heads off.
She was yanking them all.
Veto Queen. Yeah.
One of the fun memories I have of Madison is you talked about day 0. And when Lauren wins the Plague HOH, everyone assumes that Madison is going up because they haven't talked to her. Meanwhile, Madison is on a call with Lauren, has snuck in there. When Lauren's not calling anyone else, Madison just swoops in and is like, hey, babe, can we talk? And they did. And they became really close off of one phone conversation just because Madison did it. But I think the thing that I'm so high on Madison's game, in itself, in a vacuum, thinking about what did Madison need to do? We criticize so many players that come in and don't do just what they want to do. And Madison is one of those players that every single time she just did what she wanted to do. And I think that is so respectful. She voted the way she wanted to do. She used the veto every time she won it. And she's like, let's
so did the whole cast.
But I think that you put that game forward when you do that, and you show by example, it's okay to use vetoes. It's fun to use vetoes. And she wasn't only using it to save herself. She was using it on occasions to save other people. And I think that that's something that's she was more under the radar, but she was also way out in front, and people weren't necessarily recognizing it. So I'm very high on that aspect of her game, considering what we thought she needed to do.
I hope she can articulate that, because the jury is going to need help, because a lot of them are not really understanding where she's coming from. And I hope she maybe the first couple of questions will kind of tip her off to the fact that the jury is not as high and she can kind of adjust in the middle of it. But I hope she's aware of that and can like craft a really good response if she's there.
Because I think it was our same worry with Lauren Murphy, and how Lauren was playing in 17 was like, are you peaking too late where you've missed out on certain jurors who have no recollection of like you doing anything in the game? Like Jodie never got on a single call with Madison all game. First juror. Second juror, Frankie, they had a 6-minute call when Frankie was HOH. That's it. Sam
Ashley
is
on call with Madison until Ashley's HOH, I think.
At the final 8, Sam is probably still angry about what the hell happened at the final 9, and Sam still does not agree that it was the right move was made there. Obviously, we disagree with Sam, and we think she made the right move to save Michael. And clearly, no offense, Sam, we were right because she's here at the final 3, and she made the right decision. Like, she's made those moves, and Madison's game really peaked starting at 9, in my opinion. Obviously, Live Night 1 was not a great limelight for her either, because the lies and all the miscommunications, all that bullshit. But Madison really peaked at 9, where she won the veto, saved Michael, and forever, changed the course of the game. And I'm hoping that, jurors 4 through 9 are able to help her in that sense. Like, not saying I'm rooting for her, but like, I'm hoping that they're able to like give her that credit, because she has a lot to say from the top 9 onward. Obviously, not much to say before that, or nothing positive to say, but like, I'm hoping that people can see the growth there for her.
And to win all these competitions, to save her allies, to like be in the limelight, and to still not be the one that's targeted. Like, she was never the target. Like, she was there to get Michael out. She was there to get Lauren out. She was there to get Sam out. Like, they did not see her as a target, which obviously is, their mistake, considering like where she is and where they are. But like, I think that is testament to the game that she's playing, that she could do all this, and nobody really seemed to care that she was.
Oh
yeah, I've become a Madistan.
Madistan.
I feel like she played efficiently. Like, okay, disregard that she was in another game, like whatever, but she came in and always talked to the people that she needed to talk to, and she guaranteed herself safety at the beginning. And whether or not other people saw that, she has to say, but it kept her safe. It just transcended the whole game, that made it so that she was never the target, because everyone was looking at pre-jury like, oh, well, she didn't do shit back there, so anyone could beat her. But she won the comps and used the veto. Like, her game has just, if anything, I feel like she has like the underdog type story. She was voted most forgettable or whatever in Touchy Subs. And look at her now. And she said, I'm not going to be forgettable. And I really have been impressed with her game, honestly.
I mean, aside from Karthik, you talked about securing safety. Aside from Karthik, she was the last person nominated in the cast. And for...
Yeah.
I was going to say, for someone like Madison who plays a game that is very much a slow burn, right? Like, given the, like, what she was willing to give in the first round or two, 9 times out of 10 gets you evicted, right? Or at least on the block, right? Like that. And she really profited from some chaotic, like, HOHs, like Frankie winning HOH in round 2 and us looking at their 6 messages exchange between each other, and he's like, Madison, you're safe. And it was like,
they hop on call and he's like, you're good, my love. And we're like sitting there being like, you and your 6 messages. All right, go off, queen.
She profited off of some people having, chaotic or like nonsensical nominations, right? Like, and she took that and she ran with it. And then once the fuse got lit and it started to burn, she really found her people. She really was loyal to her side for the most part. Sorry, Sam. But like, and sorry Michael, and sorry Sam, and I guess sorry Lauren too, because she kind of burned Lauren at the end too. I was like, you should evict Lauren instead of me. Which whatever. But once she played with her people. She won when she needed to win. She saved herself. Her story is one of I see her story having more of like this kind of trajectory than any of the finalists at all. Yeah. Whereas I feel like Boaster, we've debated, how much did he really go up and down? How much did Preston really just coast through most of this season? But Madison really starts really low, and she just has continued to build and build and build and build. And like, if the jury members have some perspective, they might actually be pretty high on her game. They just have to look past the personal, or lack thereof, of personal bond that they may or may not have with her. And I just don't think that they're going to be able to do that. So.
And that's the whole part is,
I have a little bit of a hot take towards Madison's pre-jury game. I think that, yes, I do think a lot of Madison's safety was luck-based. I talked a lot about Madison, having luck with who was winning power. But I think there were a lot of people that were being very annoying in the pre-jury of the game. And I think that Madison's game in the pre-jury was a really good example of less is more, because she was not around enough to annoy the fuck out of these people. And I think what happened was a lot of times people getting nominated were because they were annoying other people, or they were saying too much, and they were giving someone all the rope, and they were just not doing themselves any favors by how much they were saying and how much they were saying bad stuff. And she was just coming in, like Tay said, and she was very efficient, and she was assuring those people, I'm with you, I support whatever you're doing, bye. And that person's like, cool, don't have to worry about Madison. And so I think that her pre-jury game, given the field, was very strong.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times in orgs, like, people are like, oh, better like the devil you know than the devil you don't, where I feel like this cast was like the opposite, where they were like, if I don't know what you're doing, like, you are safe, like you are against me, so, or I think you're against me, so you could go, which is normally, I feel like, the opposite. Like, where people are at, but you're like, okay, well, you could stay because I don't know anything about this person. So I do think that Madison benefited from the gameplay that was happening. I do think in other seasons, she probably would have been up and out in the first, in the pre-jury, but this cast was, playing it differently, and, she took advantage of that, which...
Exactly. Like, you got to be adaptable. Yeah, got to be adaptable. Got to be able to play with the, the pieces you got. Like, you don't know what 15 people were going to shove you in the house with, and it worked out for her, and she took advantage of it and played the way that she wanted to, and it's worked out for her. I fully disagree. I do not think her pre-jury game was strong at all, but like, that's just me personally. I love her with all of my heart. She makes me laugh and she makes me smile, and that's something that I really appreciate about her. But like, I do not think her pre-jury game was. I mean, there were so many people being like, "Why is Madison not on the block?" There were so many people who would have nominated her, so many, and she got
really lucky. She got lucky. I mean, luck is a verified piece of this game.
All three of them have so much luck to them. Foster's power outage, so lucky for him. The fact that Lauren got so spooked by Michael at the final 6, so lucky for him. Preston, lucky that certain people did not win. Madison, certain people, very lucky that a lot of people didn't win. Like, every one of them have benefited from luck, and that's something that I hope all of them own tomorrow. Whoever's the final 2, they need to own that, because that's very important to me as a juror, and I'm hoping it's important to them as well. As like owning the fact that there is luck to your game. You cannot control everything in this game, and being able to own the fact that part of your game is luck-based.
I have never watched an org and seen a winner who did not benefit from some amount of luck in some capacity. The only example that's come to mind, like off the top of my head, of somebody who made it to the end when there really wasn't that much luck because they played very well, was Justin, and how like RGB really ran circles around literally everyone in that game. But even then, Justin benefits from the target shifting to K-Pow when they're sitting on the block together. Like, he really benefit. Now, he had his alliance that was pushing that narrative, but like, in terms of like, I mean, even Justin, who's like the first example that pops in my head of like a winner who made it to the end by playing really great and outplaying the field still has luck on his side in some capacity. There's always going to be luck.
Exactly. Well, we'll start to get to the game and talk about a little bit how the game ultimately affects how we got to the final three and any last opinions we have. But where we left off is on day 24. Lauren wins the Zendo Power of Veto, and ultimately after some discussions with Michael, where Michael alluded to wanting to maybe take a shot at Foster, who knows, TBD, but I want to talk about it with you, Lauren, my confidant. She goes, oh yeah, we're not having this shit. Vetoes Foster off the block. Madison nominates Preston, and Gabby is evicted 2-1, despite Michael's efforts to try and get Preston evicted, because God, he has been so against Preston for, at this point, 7 or 8 rounds. At this point, he has wanted Preston's blood on all over him, but Michael did not win a single HOH all season, so you don't win HOH, you don't get that power. So it didn't work out. But Michael is still reeling from the Lauren using the veto, and ultimately like the veto video that maybe implied that Michael wasn't trustworthy with where his vote was going. And by maybe, I mean it definitely didn't. It definitely did say that. I'm not sorry, Lauren. I love you, but you definitely threw that man right under the fucking bus, even if you didn't need to, but you did. And it's like this weird, like, I think Josh called it best. I mean, maybe you did, Stokes. Someone did where they're having those breakup messages with each other of like these long paragraphs of like apologizing when they should have apologized hours and hours and hours ago, but they're finally, because they're like, okay, well, our relationship's done. We can finally have these like open and honest communication without feeling like a stigma there of feeling like I'm wrong and you're right or whatever. They're both like, who cares who's wrong and who's right? We're done. So it doesn't matter. So they're finally having this like discussion they needed to be having days ago, because Madison's been keeping them together for so long, and now they don't care what Madison thinks anymore. They're done with each other, and they've just had so many tumultuous events that it was just best for them to just stop talking.
Maybe watching all of that unfold, it was like a fucking telenovela. And I hated it. It was the worst episode I've ever seen. Like from just like the comedy of errors of like the timing, right? Like Lauren wins, we announce the winner. She's got like 45 minutes to talk to everybody before she goes on her Valentine's Day date. To Michael being like, hey, we got to do this. Oh, but also, by the way, I'm going into a 2-hour meeting. So BRB, like, to both him and Madison saying, hey, gal, it's fine. Use the veto.
Whatever.
It's your veto. Do whatever you want to do with it. And then she was like, okay, cool. So I can do whatever I want. You said you might want to evict Foster. Okay, Foster, you're coming off the block. Meanwhile, Foster's just like, please, like, I'll take anything.
I'll take it, yeah.
to then the transition of like how the information spread from all 6 people, and it gets to Michael, and he's like, now what the hell? The veto's getting used. Why did nobody clear this with me? Like, what is going on? I'm pissed. To then him saying, I think it's time we went our separate ways. Girl, the drama. It was so bad. It was so bad.
In the words of Keisha, girl, let's get to the drama. The drama. It was a lot.
It was so bad. I was uncomfortable watching it because it was like, Michael, you told her she could use it. Sit down. Be happy your ass is not going on the block. Like, why are you like determined to make everything an issue and to make everything a fight? Like, now you're coming at Lauren again.
Then he says, I'm tired of fighting with everyone. I'm like, you started all the things.
Stop fighting.
You're the one starting it. Like, Lauren's sitting here like, why are you upset with
why
me?
is everything an argument? I'm like,
Dude, then, well, and like, sorry, Lee, but like Lauren has another horrible read, and she's like, well, the only reason that you that you're so upset right now is because you're obviously working with Gabby behind my back. And like, it was just bad. It was just bad all around. Nobody had a happy Valentine's Day. Everybody got broken up with. It was fucking gross.
So good. So here
Okay,
for
sorry,
it.
Lee,
So
go ahead.
fun.
No, I'm still sad that Vinny had a sad Valentine's Day. He had to have Lauren put the phone down.
I was gonna say, not to dox this man, because Vinny is Lauren's partner.
Vinny, there are tons of gay men in the org world that.
Oh my lord!
Don't even start this. Vinny, turn the episode off, babe.
Here's where I was going with this. Michael should not have picked a fight with Lauren. However,
no.
I understand why Michael was upset at this point, because Lauren's message was that she was using the veto because she did not feel confident that Foser had the votes to stay, which was, without naming him, very much throwing him under the bus for being like two-faced. And I think that if that's the case, like regardless of he shouldn't have started the fight. Yes.
Thank you. Period. End of statement. End of statement. That's where it ends. That's where it ends.
Reason to be upset.
That's
no one is sitting here saying he shouldn't be upset, because he rightfully was allowed to be upset. But you don't pick a fight at the final 6 where you, spoiler alert, need her vote to stay.
I disagree. He had no reason to be upset because his ass was not the renom. He told her she could do whatever she wanted with the veto, and it was fine. He has no leg to stand on. Sorry, I disagree.
I'll let K-Pop go, and then I will.
I think that Michael is a player who would very much benefit from taking some time away and then having the conversations that he needs to have. Because yes, he had a right to be upset, right? He did, period. But if he would have logged off, talked to Lauren in the morning, the conversation would have been so different because he had the evening to calm down. Instead, he's in his feels. He is, this is not the first time him and Lauren have come to blows about decisions, and they've always ended badly, right? Day one,
I was gonna say literally day one we started with this argument.
Yelling at her, not yelling at her, but is animated on a call with a raised voice. I don't want to say that he's like yelling at her
because he didn't yell at her. He raised his voice.
I think the word is turbulent.
Animated. So if he would have just like went off and talked to her in the morning, like I think the conversation would have gone a lot differently, and their allyship like could have stayed, their alliance like could have stayed stronger. But he acted out of emotion at the time.
Yeah. Do I think he should have been?
Lauren worked with him as long as she did.
No.
The amount of arguing,
loyal queen,
and I think that both of them said she could do whatever she wanted with the veto. I think the video, yes, he had a right.
I think he's only allowed to be upset about how the video was executed, but he was mad about way more than that.
Well.
That's the only thing he's allowed to be upset about.
He does not need to be more upset with her. However, I think given Michael's history leading up to that point, how many times was he on the receiving end of bad communication, or like the butt of the joke of bad communication, back door versus back up, or what
but you don't get to be mad at her when you went into a work meeting. Lauren did what was the right thing to do, which was to communicate with everyone what she was doing at the final 6 veto and tell everyone.
Yes.
You are the last one to figure out because you went into a fucking work meeting. It's not that she didn't exclude you. She messaged you and you didn't respond.
She messaged him first.
Yeah.
It's not up to her.
With this veto.
Yeah. It's not up to her to like double, triple, quadruple message him because he's not responding. That's not her fucking job, in my opinion. But like, you don't get to be upset. Like, yes, I get having the lack of communication is frustrating, but like it's because you had to go away for work. Like she talked with everyone else because they were available, my love. Like she doesn't hate you.
He's just mad because he didn't get his way.
I mean, T. That's ultimately. I mean, T. Get him. I mean, he said it literally today in his project. He's like, we should have evicted Foster at 6 because that's what you wanted. Because that's what you wanted, and you didn't get your
And
way.
he even
Do
says
what you want as long as it's what I want.
the part of the
Sorry,
reason she even used the veto is because he says in the chat with her, but I really think that it would be smart to take Foster out here, or like he wanted to have that conversation, which is a normal conversation to have, but not over text, not when you're just gonna disappear then. So it made Lauren scared. But if they were calling and he wanted to talk about that, I'm sure it would have been fine. Of course.
The intention would have been there.
Yeah.
The back and forth would have been there 100%.
Exactly.
You know, I think it's important that we also mention, you know, Gabby was evicted, by the way, in that round.
Yes. Like, I mean, ultimately, I mean, it's a side effect of, ultimately, I mean, it wasn't what Foster wanted, but like ultimately Foster can't look at, you know, a gift horse in the mouth. Like Lauren literally saved him from the block and she said, please promise me you'll do this. So he's not going to go back on it. So like ultimately that's why she gets evicted there. Had they been voting with their true intentions, Preston would have been out there 2-1. Foster and Michael would have evicted Preston there, absolutely. But I mean,
he's going to upset her at 4 anyway. He should have done it.
I mean, T, honestly, I mean, now knowing what happens, I mean, you should have done it. But like, but ultimately, and Michael, you're very lucky that I was the 5th or 6th production member to vote on these awards, because I would put this as the worst move of the season. But you're lucky that enough people have already voted for something else that my vote's being overridden here. Because in my opinion, this is the worst move of the season in terms of how he handled the entire end of this final 6 round. Because ultimately, spoiler alert, he tells Preston he's voting him out and he doesn't care. Even though the votes aren't there to send him out, he's telling Preston, I'm voting to evict you. He's picking a fight with Lauren. He, I mean, basically got alluded to the fact that he was going to evict Foster at 6. And guess what? Those are the 3 votes you needed to stay at the final 5. And guess what? You pissed all of them off at the end of the final 6 round because of how you handled it. And you're lucky that everyone else has voted for the worst move of the season. You're so lucky, because I would have pitched so hard for it to be this. It will be the honorable mention, though. It will be the honorable mention. So we get to the final 5 rounds. We get to the final 5. Foster wins the Spoon Support HOH after not very long at all. He ultimately is not too happy with how the final 6 round went. I mean, he now is in a trio alliance called the Chanels with Preston and Lauren, and who have all debriefed him on how the final 6 round went. And Foster's just not too happy with how Lauren felt leaving that round. He's not happy with how Michael talked about Lauren and Preston to Foster directly. He's like, yeah, Michael, it's time to go, my love. He's going to nominate Michael and Madison. He wants Michael to GTFO. And of course, Michael is back on his bullshit, because he now is conspiracy theory, even though this one's actually kind of true. After Michael drops, quite literally 20 seconds later, Lauren then drops out of the HOH, giving the HOH to Foster. Michael's like, I don't want to pick another fight, but it seems like Lauren threw that HOH to Foster to make sure I'm in a bad position.
And we literally were, I was on call with one of you, and I was like, oh, here we fucking go again with Michael and his fucking conspiracy theories. And like, Lauren was like, I guess I kind of did. Not really, but I kind of threw it.
I kind of did throw it to him, didn't I? She's like, yeah, like I didn't want to adjust my spoon, but once Michael is out, I was like, I'm okay to adjust my spoon. Worst case, it falls. And I'm like, so it sounds like you did throw it. So Laura, and I was like, God, here we go again. Not another fucking Michael and Lauren fight.
I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it again. We've done it how many fucking times with how many fucking people? I cannot do it again.
So very lucky that they, Michael was very much like, I have to win this veto. I don't have time to be doing anything else. We get to the veto, which is the I Spy veto. For whatever reason, Foster just throws it to the wayside for whatever reason, which is so weird to me. Like, I think this was so stupid. Like in my opinion, Preston and Michael have been your very clear game trivia, like, biggest opponents. And Foster's sitting here being like, well, if I don't win Final Four veto, I'm out. Well, then why are you not working harder to ensure that one of them goes out here? Like, if you need to win Final Four veto, eliminate someone who has a good chance of beating you there. So why were you not working harder to ensure Michael is out of here? Because to my knowledge, had Michael won the veto, Preston goes up, and I think he still would have pushed for Madison to be booted there and not Preston. So like he was like even going to encourage having both of them still at the Final Four. It's like, why are you not working harder to get rid of Michael here? Like he just basically, I mean, we all know that he sat on that veto call just jibber jabbering for 7 or 8 minutes just to increase his time because he just like didn't care and was hoping that they see his score is like so outrageously terrible that if he is to lose at the Final Four, at the Final Four, basically, that maybe they go, oh well, he's fallible, he's beatable.
He's bad at
my
Ice
dude, my dude. You being bad at Ice Spy is not going to change your perception.
You cannot that when you're a comp threat, it doesn't.
Yeah, like you've been a comp threat before you even won a challenge. You were a comp threat from these people.
We've
like
talked about this so much, like flopping in one comp. Every comp threat has a comp or two. I think he would have been good at this challenge, by the way. But
yes.
every comp threat has a challenge they're not good at. So me subtly flopping at one challenge, not gonna be like, oh, he's not good at comps anymore.
Literally.
You know what?
It follows you.
You know what I would be thinking? I'd be like, well, thank God that one's out of the way. Like, or be like, oh, the one thing he's bad at is out of the way. So he's probably going to win out from here if we don't get it.
Yeah, I just was so baffled by that decision. I was like, if Michael was to win that veto, he'd be kicking himself for being so stupid to have not have fought harder for that. I mean, lucky for him, Preston wins the veto. And
even
doesn't
if Madison wins, it's bad for
even
them.
if Madison wins, I mean, it could have been been interesting.
People that shouldn't win.
Yeah, I mean, had Michael won, I think it would have been the worst move of the season. Would have been him throwing that.
Throwing it. Like, why were you doing that?
I just. I mean,
yeah, like who knows? Even if Madison wins.
Unless you're trying, like I understand, I've heard a lot of discussion about winning the top 6 stuff, kind of laying low the top 5 so then you can win the top 4 or have more chances at 4. But really, there is no point. Once you've made it to the point where everyone's playing in the veto, there's no point in throwing a damn thing. Because you should be doing everything you can. Alliances don't matter when it becomes a Tetris puzzle. It becomes who wins and who can do something with that win. So don't throw anything once you're at final 6. Just win.
Yeah, just win. Literally.
Lee playing BBH18. Just win.
Just win everything. I mean, the end game of Big Brother is just win every comp that you can and assert more dominance and assert more of your influence on the game. So I was just really baffled as to that decision. Ultimately, I do think Preston still would have won even had he tried. But like, whatever. Preston wins, doesn't use the veto, and I mean, because I love this meme. Yeah, it's a wrap for Michael at this point. I mean, he literally told Preston to his face. Preston was like, hey, do you want to vote to keep me? And Michael goes, no, I'm not actually. In fact, I'd rather actually vote to evict you. I've wanted you gone for rounds now. I'm going to evict you. Regardless of the votes are there or not, I'm going to evict you. He's a key voter. That's number 1. 2, you've just pissed off Lauren. She's the other voter you need to at least force a tie, to even send it to the person that Lauren has already hinted to that you wanted to evict at the final 6. Like it's a wrap, my dog. Like the final 6 round was such a misplay by him, where literally the 3 people he pissed off most are the key voters at 5. Like it was a wrap as soon as he didn't win veto, and my God, he flopped. Sorry, Michael, you did done flopped at the Ice Spy. It was not close, but it was just like
what 30 seconds in, we were like, oh, okay, he's not winning.
Yeah. We had to handle the issue regarding making sure the comp was equitable, and we're like, okay, well, we'll come back to it depending on how Michael does. Like if Michael blows everyone out of the water, then there's no conversation to be had. But we were like, oh yeah, literally a minute, and we're like, all right, hey Prob, we're gonna hop on call after Michael's done because we have to discuss equitability here because Michael for sure is not winning.
No, and the choir of Caro Angels will welcome Michael into paradise to talk about how bad I Spy was. But
Jesus, I mean, she was far worse. But I mean, yeah, he just at this point he's got no room to campaign. It's just an unwinnable battle. I mean, and
they didn't give him a chance to campaign. To be honest,
no.
nobody gave him the time of day, and he was
as
like,
they shouldn't.
Michael was really like, where I think it's still in here too. Hold on, this was Michael.
Waiting for the prediction.
not to be petty, but like he didn't give other people the opportunity to campaign to them. So like I don't know, what goes around comes around in these games. Like
no, he literally told Preston to go campaign to the other two people. Like,
oh yeah, literally. Michael knew. Michael was like, I mean, he tried. Michael approached Preston, being like, "Hey," and Preston's like, "Yeah, like." There's
Michael's like,
no.
all that stuff I said yesterday. I take it back.
The thing that's so funny, and I think it was in watching one of the exit interviews today, I thought this was particularly interesting because we knew that before Michael left that the jury was still like, you know, they were like, he made a lot of fumbles, but if he gets to the end, he deserves to win. And I think Foser felt the same way, though. Like, you know, he was like, I want Michael out, but if Michael's at the end, I will, by virtue of having tried to get him out, I will vote for him. But I feel like the others voted him out because they just wanted him out. Like, I don't think the others remaining in the game. Like, Lauren was a good testament of that. Like, she did not think he actually had a chance to win.
Yeah.
And it showed how bad I think a read in the moment, because I think they were just getting so annoyed by him that they didn't realize.
Well, she also wasn't going to vote out Madison.
No, but I think that I think that the players remaining don't really like they voted him out. Right conclusion, maybe wrong reason. Like they weren't realizing what a threat he was to win if he got to the end. Which I just found so interesting that they had kind of dismissed that from him.
I mean, it's also hard because, I mean, and I will go on record and say this, I will never vote for someone who was evicted in a game, came back, and made the final two. I will never vote for that. But that's just my personal virtue. And that's just how I live my life. Like, I will never vote for someone who was eliminated in that game to win the game. Just I know others have. I mean, there's someone on this stream who has won that game, who has won that way, and clearly got the majority of voters to vote that way. So, like, there are more elements than just that, you know, than just that fact that applies to their game. Personally, that would override anything for me, and I would not see Michael as a winner threat. But again, you have to take in consideration who's playing the game. And like, we know that there were jurors ready to vote for Michael had he made it to the end. Like, some were very angry with him and how he talked to people because he's very like game body and serious and like wants to get to business. But like, there were a lot of people ready to write that man's name down to win the whole fucking season had he made it there because of the obstacles he faced by his own choice. But that's not here nor there, but he faced a lot of obstacles. And that's ultimately, but ultimately, I do think that the votes there were more so about, you just need to go. Like, honestly, like, I don't even want to think about who has the better win equity here, because Madison's on the uprise. Michael's on the downswing. Like, realistically here, Madison is growing in popularity as a winner threat, and Michael isn't. But, like, at the end of the day here, like, Michael was just, like, Preston was annoyed from the day prior. Lauren's still kind of angry. Lauren also knows her vote doesn't matter. Like, Foster has told her that he's evicting Michael doesn't matter. So, like, her vote is inconsequential at the end of the day anyway. So it's just, like, a lot of things factored into just, like, get him out of here. Let's just move on. Let's have a peaceful day.
Which is funny to think about if there is a world in which Madison wins, which I do think there is a world. Yeah, but if there is a world in which Madison wins, there's a way that we can look back on that moment and say that it was a bad move to be so caught up in how annoyed they were with him and not vote out the person that was on the rise. It's so funny to think back on that now and think that could have been such a bad move for everyone else.
I feel like so much of this season has just shown me that what you do in the pre-jury just hovers over you for the rest of the game. Like, no matter what, you can, if you start winning a bunch of shit in the pre-jury, you're going to be a comp threat. If you are quiet in the pre-jury, by jury, people just think you're quiet. Like, it just seems like, and I think that's like what happened with Madison really is everyone was like, oh, well, she has no chance to win from the pre-jury, that they just wrote off all the stuff she's been doing since then.
Yeah, and it's taken some time. I think Foster and Preston both know that Madison has a chance to win this game, and I think the jury is, thanks to Michael, starting to really see the winner upside to her. Like, before Michael got there, they're all kind of like, Madison, who? Don't know her. And Michael came in and going like, no, she did all of these things, X, Y, and Z. Like, he's like, I'm not saying vote for her, but I'm saying y'all are just like completely dismissing her and not even giving her the credit she deserves. He's like, I'm not saying she's playing a winning game or she deserves to win this game, but like, at least give her roses when she deserves them. And after you give her her roses, then you can make a valid decision as to who should win this game. But don't vote before you take everything into consideration. And I love that about a juror. Take everything into consideration. Because don't, as much as the first 6 or 7 rounds of this game should be a factor into your decision, it shouldn't be the only factor you consider. And it felt like for a long time for Madison, that was the only thing people were considering, was how she did up until, even including what she did against Sam at the final 9, was like all anyone was considering, versus seeing how much she had won past that point and what she had done in the game. So I'm happy that she has Lauren and Michael in there to at least vouch for her. So looking forward to it. The final 4 round is pretty cut, dry, and simple. HOH is Preston, who wins What the Bleep. Nominates Lauren and Madison as a thank you to Foster, was what his rationale was. It's like, thanks, Foster, for being a good ally. Do I dare open up the argument of, or do I dare open up the topic of, do Final 4 nominations matter? I don't know. Maybe we will, maybe we won't, but we'll get there if we want to.
I've not won a BB org. I
I'll take
can't
another
weigh in on
drink. And then we can open up the combo.
I need another drink for that one. Personally, I don't think they matter. Moving on. Ultimately, whatever you decide about Final 4 nominations, sure, there's intentionality there, but ultimately, all the power rests in the veto holder. If the HOH wins the veto too, then they can make the decision as who gets the sole vote to evict, and then that person has all the power. Or if it's not the HOH, they get the sole vote to evict, and therefore your nominations didn't fucking matter to begin with. Sure, you show intentionality by who you nominate initially, but besides that, who cares? So the target, who knows what the target was from Preston? Clearly Madison and Lauren want to evict Foser, obviously. They have no other choice. They're not going to evict each other. Preston, who knows what that man would have done? He has gone back and forth so many goddamn times about that. Who knows what he would have done in the moment? He was at work too.
He says now that he would have put one of them in the position to evict Foser. But it's so hard to tell if that's actually true.
In the moment, we're not going to sit here and try. Do I think he would have? I would say 75% chance, yes. But ultimately, he was going back and forth all day.
It further proves the point that your nominations at Final 4 do not matter, because the target was Foser. He was left off the block. He won the veto. The nominations didn't matter. Foser ensured that, it didn't even, and it's the thing. It was the funny thing.
I don't want to fight with you
for 30 seconds. But we made him have a veto ceremony where he's like, "What am I doing with the veto?" Guess what? If what you're doing with the veto doesn't matter, then the noms didn't matter. Because he could not use the veto, because using the veto forced himself onto the block.
I don't know. I'm of the opinion that you always put up the person you want out.
That's also my opinion. At Final 4, you put up the 2 people who.
Well, that's you.
Well, I did put up the person I wanted out, but
because and if anyone tries to play this bullshit of the person I leave off the block is going to feel safer and they're not going to fight for the vetoes hard, fuck with that bullshit. At Final 4 veto, everybody's you nominate the 2. You nominate, if someone has gone unnominated at this point, you put their ass up on the block. Right. If you want someone to go home, you put their ass up on the block. Because if you're at the final 2, you can be yeah, that's what I wanted to happen. Sure, that only accounts to 10% of my jury vote. Sure, knowing what should happen is one thing. Executing is way more important to me. If you knew Foster should have left, great. But guess what? You didn't execute it, because Foster wins the veto. You didn't do what needed to be done. So sure, kudos for knowing what needed to be done, but you didn't execute the plan. So it's a miss. It's a chop. You didn't get it done. You should have sat on. You should have made a fucking trio. Oh, I'm gonna get feisty. You should have made a trio alliance with Madison and Lauren, and you should have fucking studied for hours with them. That's what you should have fucking done. Period. End of statement. You should have gone on call and prepped the fucking gals and got them fucking together. Because both Preston and Foster predicted this challenge. Because they've gone to the wiki. Because they've gone and looked back and seen what we've done in the past. They predicted this shit. And he didn't get the girls together. He let it up to fate.
Love the girls. Madison and Lauren needed more than a study group to win that challenge. So
but that would have helped. It would have maybe helped. Yeah, Madison and Lauren did not do well, but because they were not prepared as to what was to come. We are definitely
what could have gone wrong.
We are definitely one of the in my opinion, we're one of the hardest orgs for game trivia. We test the girlies. We don't care. Ooh, congrats! You can name the HOHs in order, bitch. That ain't worth it here. You have to prove that you want it. And Madison, I think, was taken aback. She's like, "Oh fuck, this is way more difficult than I thought it was." And Lauren, it's her first fucking org. She didn't know what to fucking expect. But like Preston just was like, I guess I'll take this one for the team and fight for it. Bitch, you've got 2 other soldiers here. Get them together. Get them in line if that's what you want to happen.
I don't think Preston was fully sold on what he wanted to happen.
Girl,
so like,
and that is a strike.
For fact.
That is a strike.
Yeah.
You do study with people. Preston and Foster were talking about studying anyway. So like, if Preston really wanted Foster gone.
And as Carl always says, like, if you don't know what you're doing by this point in the game, that's not good.
Also, the gal pals. Like, if you were like Preston, Madison, and Lauren knew what the fuck they were doing. They knew Foster got to go. Period. End of statement. Preston even wishy washy. I'm like, gal pal, what you doing? He got to go. Period.
And I do believe that Madison and Lauren were studying. Like, I do.
They did.
But here's the issue. I didn't mean shade towards Michael's notes. Like, I'm so like that's really nice that he gave them to him. But I give the same criticism, like hosting Subversion as well, is that you need to take your own notes. Even if someone gives you their notes, you learn it the best by writing them out for yourself. And trying to study someone else's notes is an obstacle. Like, you're just not going to know it as well if you didn't go through that habit of writing it. And I think that they just weren't as conditioned to know that stuff as quickly. And I think that ultimately is part of why they didn't do as well.
Yes, there's lots of educational studies that prove what you just said.
Exactly.
But also the educators on the call are shaking because you have to differentiate for your learners, and everybody learns differently.
True. I agree.
And that's the thing. If you study your notes based off, okay, round 1, what happened in round 1? Great. Lauren won HOH. Sam won the veto. This, if you're memorizing in the order of the things that happened in the house, and then you flip over a memory match card that says evicted on day 20, you're like, oh god, that takes me a long time to get there. Like, you have to be able to like, and I think that's what Lauren and Madison lacked, was the how do I study from every different angle that I could ask you something like days. I think they studied from moment to where we are now, and that doesn't work when I ask you about day 20. Who won the comp on day 14? That forces you to go to a longer train of thought to get there, versus Foster and Preston are like, okay, I've already studied day 14. That's a Karthik win, moving on. Like, you had to be ready to study from all different angles, and I think that's what they lacked, and that's not their fault. It's just a lack of experience in how 1 we test, or 2 just orgs in general. But ultimately, like, if that's what you wanted, you got to get it done. How many times have we seen other people like get on these calls with alliances and study together to get something done? I just felt like if they wanted something to happen, they had to work harder for it. And like, maybe that's shady, but like, if you all 3 are unified against him, make it like, do the damn thing. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? He wins, and like, like, at least y'all fought together.
We saw it earlier this season. Like, Lauren and Madison were a part of the train of thought HOH, where they got on call with their people and they planned it all out. And I mean, Madison did her own thing, but what happened? Sam, Lauren, and Michael were the top people in the comp because they were the ones who got their shit together and like sorted it all out.
I think a missed opportunity there, but ultimately I'm not going to sit here and be like, how dare you? But definitely I feel like there was effort to be made from all 3 parties there if they wanted the same collective idea to happen, especially knowing it's going to be game trivia. Like, there were things you could have done to have worked together better to have increased your odds of winning, and I feel like there was a lack there, and that's unfortunate.
I think the thing that was so interesting to me, which also, like, there's just game fatigue, and game fatigue is very real by that point. But at the point where he wins the veto, they're just kind of like, well, shucks. Like, they weren't even like that devastated. And I'm like, Lauren and Madison, it's one of you. One of you.
They're all.
I don't think that reality had set in yet because of the game fatigue and everything else. But everyone's like, well, that you won. And there was nothing, like, no sense of urgency. Nothing that was like, oh my God, if he wins, it is absolutely me or my closest friend here. And I don't think that actually set in with them.
No, not at all. And again, our game moves very quickly, and yeah, like this week is hell week for a reason. It's not easy. It's not fun to get through. It's not fun from production to get through. Like it's fucking exhausting for us, and we're not even fucking playing. But ultimately, Foster wins the veto and makes the most rotted fucking decision in the history of anything and everything on this good God green earth, and that is that he evicted Lauren, which is the right decision.
It's the right.
Well, maybe, I don't know. Like I see an alternative thought here, and we can talk about it. I mean, ultimately, I do see where either his options are go into final three, nix Lauren, and basically it's win or lose at that point. Like win final three HOH or I'm getting evicted. Or the other option is you evict Madison, you keep Lauren in and hope that you can convince Preston that Lauren's the bigger winner threat and at least give you another person who can win HOH on top of you and you still make the final two. I don't know where Preston's head would have gone because ultimately I think Preston does realize that Lauren and Foster are the two strongest people left in the game at this point. So I don't know where he ultimately decides on that. So I see both ideas here. Ultimately he chooses, the former and evicts Lauren here, which again, I don't think is a bad decision because if Lauren goes on to win the HOH, the final one and evicts Foster, I mean, it's game over. She wins the whole fucking season. Dare I say unanimously. So like, there's also on that risk.
Well, and my take on that is I think what ends up happening if Foster doesn't evict Lauren is that maybe Lauren wins final HOH or maybe Preston wins and takes Lauren and then just gets slaughtered by her.
Yeah.
But I think based on the fact that Preston wanted Foster to leave at Final Four and was never really pushing for Lauren to leave makes me believe that in a Final Three scenario, the same thing would have played out. So I kind of feel like Foster is just going to have to win Final Three HOH no matter what the configuration was going to be.
If they're smart. I mean, if Preston and Madison are smart, they will cut Foster if they win.
I think
Madison absolutely would. There's no world in which he wouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's
when she screams, "This is for Lauren," and evicts Foster, and then gets a 9-0 unanimous victory. Then what?
I was not a shield; I was a sword.
Because here's the thing. I mean, we get to our final three, and I mean, you're about to allude to it. We're at our final three. Foster has won part one, so he is automatically advancing to part three. And part three is, I mean, politely a little bit of a crapshoot. Like, sure, like. There are some elements of things that you can use your own knowledge, but other parts are kind of like we can write a fucking brilliant ass answer as the fake answer. We saw it in 17. Nikki and Lauren only got 2 out of 8 right. Like sometimes we just write brilliant. I mean, Foster was just watching the BBH18 finale, and the question was, who did Veronica say was their mortal enemy, Kadri or the Block? The Block's so fucking funny. The answer is Kadri, but like we wrote the Block. That's fucking iconic. So like there's that element to it. It's like whatever. But part 2, while not as significant, because ultimately Preston and Madison will make the same decision at the end of the day if they go on to win part 3. So whoever wins, whatever. But honestly, it could be the game-winning move because Preston and Madison present such an equal like jury ground. Like the jury is not as decided. Like if Foster gets there, it seems as though the jury is pretty set regardless if Foster gets there. More so against Preston than against Madison. I think Madison presents a little bit more of a fight because they are so different in game mechanics in how they played this season against Preston, which is Foster's ideal choice to bring to the end. If Foster brings Preston, it's kind of a wrap. But if it's Preston and Madison, it's very close. And honestly, whoever takes out Foster, that could be the game-winning move right there. It feels very Elise Turner, BBH16, cutting Caro, who the jury was dying to vote for.
Yeah.
Was a huge swing for
it. Rip my fucking heart out remembering that Caro lost.
Yeah.
No, and I did cry. But
like Lauren cutting Nikki, game-winning move to solidify her win. Like how many times have we seen it where someone who wins the final HOH cuts the jury favorite, and that becomes their game-winning move to solidify the jury votes that they need. And as part 2 seems inconsequential in the sense of like what it ends to, but that person could win part 3 and win the game because of this move that would be made in like 24 hours. So that's intriguing. Very, very intriguing. I don't know. I mean, I think the jury is very in favor of Foster, and then Preston and Madison I think very much depends on how they pitch themselves. I think all three are deserving of a win. I think all three have played very well. Sue me if you disagree. I don't fucking care. I think they all have played very well. In each of their own rights, they have played very differently. It depends what you value.
I think this is the first season in a while where going into it, I think I will be able to feel good about the winner in the moment in a while. Like, I think it's well documented and much love and respect to Elise. I did not think Elise was going to win, and I was not very high on their win. Looking back, I see it a lot clearer now. Lizzie, same way. You know, I think there was a lot of controversy between like, should Crystal win? Should Susie win? Like Ryan, you know, like, you know, but I feel like going into this, I'm like, I will feel good about who wins this season, no matter who wins.
Yeah.
I think there are tiers. Like,
yeah, for sure.
There are definitely like better winners on the board, but I think any of them I could get behind and feel happy about in the moment.
Jury,
and then hopefully it'll just grow as time.
Yeah.
The jury was saying this today. I think it was Gabby that kind of sparked this conversation. But basically, once they came out of the first live night and Michael battles back in, I don't think there was a bad winner in that bunch. Like, anyone had a path conceivably at least to the end. But I think we could have seen a world in which anyone could have won, and we would have been able to see what their story was had that happened. And I think that was really exciting.
So why do you hate Jodie Tan?
I was just mimicking.
So why do you hate Jodie Tan?
Hey, I love Keisha too, and Keisha loves me. However, what I'm saying is, once you got out of that live night, you started to see what everyone's story was, what everyone's path was, and what their what they were planning to do to get to the end, what they needed to do to get to the end, and how they could sell it if they got to the end. Yeah. Because like, even though they went out fairly quickly afterwards, like Frankie, Karthik, like those players, we had them at the top of our rankings many times and knew what their path was and knew how they could sell it. And we were thinking Frankie could win, Karthik could win, Ashley could win, Gabby could win. And we knew that all of these players, Sam could win. Like, all of these players that ended up getting cut in the early jury had that winning path. And I think that made this so exciting because we didn't know how it was going to shake out. I mean, I'm for one not surprised that Foser is here, but I think that like, we didn't know how it was going to shake out and what configuration, but I think overall, like we were going to be pleased with any configuration because they were all a strong group of people, maybe not playing the best, but they had like good stories and they were narrating the season well and they were showing us why they were here. They wanted to be here so badly and they were participating. And I think that it was such a compelling group of people. You see like how the jury's getting along, like they are really getting very close. And I think it's just showing how much respect they have for each other. This is not going to be a bitter jury. This is going to be a jury that is open-minded, listens to the players. I can't wait to do the jury roundtable tomorrow because I think that they're going to come in with some really great ideas. But I'm so excited because I think that they're going to come in maybe thinking they know what they're going to do, but they're going to listen to what every finalist has to say, how they narrate their game. And probably even like, I mean, Michael Brady is like one of the biggest hype people on this jury. He's going to make sure that these finalists feel good about their games. And that even though he doesn't vote for them or he asks them hard questions, like I guarantee you, he's going to be the person that leaves that jury questioning and says, like, you should feel proud. You should feel proud. Own what you've done here. And I think that it's like, we haven't seen a jury this refreshing. And like the juries have been great, but like this jury is just super refreshing. They understand game, they respect game. They're a bunch of gamers that really left it in the game, and that's super exciting.
This cast was incredible from top to bottom. No misses, honestly. Like
in terms of the season, it's like mid-tier for me, but in terms of the cast, it's probably one of my favorite casts.
Wow, mid-tier, fucking
mid-tier. Get the fuck off this screen.
Why do you hate BBH18?
It's my favorite season I've been on production for. So
wow.
Oh my god, get out of here, Jesus!
And it'll be your last.
I mean, I'll say it's been my favorite season being on production in the moment. Obviously, that might change as time goes on. Because I was really high on 17, and maybe I'll like 18 less in a few months. But also, like, I've really enjoyed. I mean, I think we were talking about it a couple days ago. Like, as a production team, like, we have felt the most unified and have felt the most communicative with each other as well, which also helps. Like, we started off on a strong foot with this amazing cast, and we never really let go off of that. That pedal. Like, we've always been in a positive mindset. Like, there have been things in past seasons that have been like, well, that fucking sucks, and then we've kind of been like a little upset with like how things have gone, like as a team, and like that has kind of like clouded that season a little bit. But like this season, we've been like really positive with ourselves as well, and that also helps too. So obviously, like hopefully in a few months, I'll be able to like take a step back and be like, how much did I really enjoy 18? I still think it will be top tier. 17 might overtake it, but who knows?
I think looking back on this, like, I think if you're someone that enjoyed 13, because I think 13 is one we look back on and we say 13 was just objectively a great season. Maybe not the best gameplay, but great characters, good gameplay, good competitive people. But I think the reason why I like this season so much, because I was such a big fan of 13, is because the gameplay has been so fluid. Not always great, but people are very open to pivoting. Regardless of kind of what side they're on. Like, they're open to listen to things. Michael Brady is a little interesting. Like, Preston never wants to listen to Preston. Always like wants Foser's approval more than anything I have ever seen. But I think, like, if you like 13, like, line 13 to this, like, there were elements of it in 14, there were elements of it in 17, and it's what makes it so exciting is the fluidity of the gameplay.
See, Lee, I think this season is more akin to 14, personally. In that, because like when I remember being in the moment, and season 13 felt very much like, and I hate to do this because I know it drives people insane, but like season 13 was like the Cagayan, and then season 14 was like the San Juan del Sur, which was like still a fantastic season, but like a little bit messier, like a little bit like less, like the gameplay wasn't as high quality potentially, like, but a very good season that gets kind of slept on because it's preceded by like a great season, right, or whatever.
And when y'all see Tay's edit, 14 will be your favorite season.
Period.
And I've been a 14th truther.
No, insane. I remember thinking in the moment, being like, 14, I like 14 better than I like 13. Anyway, but I look at this season and I see so many similarities in that, like, the cast is amazing. The gameplay is messy and not the best gameplay, but fun and interesting and entertaining. And we're going to have a compelling winner. I mean, Ryan was not a compelling winner in the moment, but I think looking back is a compelling winner, given that given like he goes on this extended run, and in the moment we were like, ew, gross, this is disgusting. But looking back, you're like, oh my God, he won out from the final 12. How incredible. Like in the, it's different with time. So I'm excited to see kind of where this season lands. But to me, right now, it feels very akin to 14. In the scheme of things. And
so in a Survivor sense, what is this?
If Cagayan was if 13 is Cagayan and 14 is San Juan del Sur, then is this like the millennial Gen X? Is it the game changers?
No, don't make it game changer.
Is it heroes, healers, hustlers?
These people.
If Foser goes on to win, I think it's Cambodia. I think it's like Jeremy Collins was such a clear and evident winner from so early on, and like no one was taking a shot at him. And by the time it got to the end, it was too late, and Jeremy was there. And
it almost feels like this is what I was going to say for some of the same reasons, because I think some of this was a little predictable, but like the pre-jury was very exciting and leading up to it. I think this is very Ghost Island vibes.
Ew, how dare you?
No,
how dare you?
Another day, but the pre-jury of Ghost Island is one of the best Survivor seasons you will ever watch. Anyway, point
You-
that's not what this is about.
The bias is jumping out because of your love for Bradley Kleege or whatever the fuck his name is.
Anyway, but then you look at the end and you look at like Wendell and Dom, and I think that was what I was so hoping that like Michael and Foser would do, was this like Wendell and Dom situation with like an Ashley or a Lauren as like the Laurel. But like I saw so much of this where
Did you just
Laurel was great, by the way. So
I love Laurel. I want her to win.
You need to check yourself, Carl, because Laurel was great.
but the jury didn't like her. How dare you relate Ashley and Lauren to Laurel?
They should have. The jury should have liked Laurel. That's the problem. Anyway.
They didn't.
But I think that like that was what we were shaping up to, because like you were talking about how Foser played such a dominant game, and I think that like similar to that, like even Brady plays a very dominant game, and that was very similar to what you saw with like a Wendell and Dom. But like the pre-jury was very exciting until they came together and said, "Hey, we're gonna run this shit to the end." And I think that that was kind of what this was shaping up to. Very chaotic in the pre-jury. Like this sand is very sandy, and it's.
Anyway. Sandy. You want the Sandy. Come on, Sandy. Come on.
That's what I was linking up to. It's just like I feel like in the moment, like a lot of people weren't high on it and still aren't high on it. But the pre-jury is I'm very high on it.
As they shouldn't be.
Yeah. Anyway, like luckily we didn't have like Twitter interns spoiling boots. But anyway, that is where I land with my Survivor comparison.
Interesting. I think, I'm Cambodia.
I'm with Carl. I also think it's Cambodia. But
if Preston wins, I think it could be wrong. Because no one sees her coming. Michelle goes to no tribal councils.
Yeah.
And then Preston's never in danger, and then comes into the next phase, and Preston really pivots for himself, makes a name for himself, is never in danger, and at the very end kicks into fucking high gear and kicks the people out that he needs to. If he goes on to win this season, it's because he cuts Foser at 3, he wins the final HOH, and he loses to Lauren and Foser back to back, and that's what gets him the win. That gives me very wrong vibes to me. Gives me very Michelle Fitzgerald and making the right cuts at the very end and going to the end.
As long as you're making that reference that you're high on Michelle Fitzgerald,
I love Michelle Fitzgerald. Don't you? No one sit here and dare talk ill of her. I also love Aubrey, so don't get that wrong either.
No, Aubrey's terrible. Anyway,
I'm very high on this season. I think 13 has a special place in my heart because it was my first production season, and I think that always like does something. But yeah, I've really loved this season, and it might be my favorite for lots of reasons. But yeah, I really enjoy it.
Any last thoughts before I recap what we will be doing tomorrow, or I guess today? No, it's still tomorrow.
Who's winning? Who do you think
part three is such a crapshoot. That's what's so hard.
I think it's Foster.
I think Foster's winning.
You think so?
Yes.
I'll be a contrarian. I'll say Preston.
I think there is a world for both. I think that Foser will win, and I hope that Foser wins, not just from like a friendship standpoint, but I've seen him be so close in recent games to winning and falling just short right at the end. And I think that this would do a lot for his confidence as well, because like he's the biggest critic of himself, and I would love to see that turn back around, because he's won things. He's shown that he is very capable of just kicking absolute ass like he has done here. But I would love to see that be rewarded with a win.
But isn't that kind of in the spirit of this is going to sound real fucking shady. Oh God, it's going to sound so bad. Isn't that kind of in the spirit of our game though? Like in the moment, the person we think is the most deserving doesn't win. Like you look at 12, Amanda doesn't win. 13, Susie doesn't win. 14, Angelica doesn't win. 15, Anthony does not win. Anthony at the very end that everyone's rooting for doesn't win. Caro does not win. Nikki does not win. Like the people that coming into finale night were all like being like they are our person.
From the beginning. I will have you.
Oh, I love Lauren. Don't get me wrong. I think I was compelled a lot by Nikki though. Nikki's gameplay at the end like was so compelling. I love Lauren too. Don't get me wrong. I was rooting for both of them, but like I think in the moment, I think who the jury was rooting for, who the fans were rooting for.
You weren't rooting for Stephanie. Wow, Carl. Wow.
She wasn't gonna win. I love Miss Megan. The jury was not high on Miss Megan, and she was not going to win. So, like, it feels in the spirit of BBH that the person who coming into finale night that the jury seems to be the highest on does not win.
We lost Dan in 11.
Well, you know what? This season has all been about the chaos and the thing not being the way it's been. So, if anything, that means Foster's probably going to win.
Well, there you go. 10, Jason Ronci. The jury was ready to vote for Jason.
I can't wait for the juror that spins a wheel for their jury question.
Get out of here. But in that's no shade to Madison. I think, in my opinion, I think Preston will win part 2. And I think, in my opinion, I think the loser of part 2 loses the season. I don't think whoever loses part 2, I don't think can win, because I think if Foster ends up winning part 3, he wins the season, and whoever wins part 2, if they win part 3, they cut Foster, and that's the game-winning move. So I think the part 2 loser ultimately does lose, and based off of the game trivia challenge that we just ran, I do think Madison doesn't beat Preston, but I could be wrong. Hey, it's a very different skill set in terms of having to be quick and match things versus simple before or after. So like, hey, who knows? But like right now, I think that if whoever doesn't win part 2 is kind of out of it. So I think Preston will win part 2.
So when that person wins, wins the season, then
I'll be wrong. Yeah, so I don't know, but I think it'll be Foster or Preston to win the season. I'll say Preston just to be a contrarian. Anyone else who hasn't said their voice of who's going to win?
I have no idea. I think Foster probably, but if I'm rooting for Madison, I think in my like deep down underdog story.
I love her arc. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's just had a good arc and would be a fun winner. I don't know. They all deserve to win, so it's hard to say at this point.
Madison will have the most surprises to reveal, which is always powerful.
It's always a good thing to have the surprises.
If she is able to articulate it, that is powerful. Whereas everybody kind of knows what Foster and Preston have been doing the whole time. So she has that.
That's also tea. And I would just love to be able to crown Madison and us looking back on day 0 where we like railed her, being like, bitch, where you at? Sis, where you at? And then going in.
If she wins, she has to sing a moment like this at the end. Like
it's absolute up.
No, and I will be suggesting that to her in her project.
Please prepare ahead of time. Prior to tonight, you were asked to perform a actual not lip sync performance of Kelly Clarkson's "A Moment Like This."
Why haven't they done that on Drag Race yet? Why has that not?
That's a tea. They haven't done many Kelly.
That would be such a great lip sync.
Maybe they can't get the.
They've only done Stronger in that weird song they did in 13 when Lala Ree got eaten up by Elliot with 3Ks, allegedly.
I'm going to nod and pretend like I know what you're talking about.
We know you watch please.
Girl, get educated.
Truly.
You know what, Madison, if you're watching this at some point, just remember, what if I told you it was all meant to be?
Oh my god. Anyway, tomorrow.
Exactly.
We might be back as a team to discuss kind of our final 3 if we want. If we decide, we'll talk about it in the morning. So don't bank on it, but don't not bank on it. Who knows? Maybe we'll be back. I don't know.
Carl, people will probably be watching this tomorrow morning.
Also that. Like I feel like
we've had an entire one viewer the whole time.
And shout out to that viewer. Let us know who you are.
Yes,
if they haven't been commenting, we know it's not Alex.
Hashtag cantaloupe if you made it to the end of today's episode.
Oh man. Yeah. So we might be back. I don't know. Every season, Josh has wanted us to do like a road to the final 3 and like recap their games, but like also that's what the jury roundtable is for. So who knows? We'll have jury roundtable at 2:30.
Gabby's exit interview tomorrow as well.
Yes. So Gabby's the last exit interview we have left jury wise, because obviously the last juror will eventually get an exit interview, but postseason because they're evicted in the moment. So Gabby's exit interview is the last juror one. We have a jury roundtable at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, hosted by Lee and maybe Tay, mostly Lee and
It's at
Tay.
2:30.
2:30 EST.
Oh, okay. I can be there.
I know, Tay, you just have been heading up the jury roundtables as of late, so I didn't want to like discredit if you were going to be there. So jury roundtable at 2:30. We'll have before part 2 of our Final HOH, which is before or after between Preston and Madison at some point tomorrow. They'll schedule it. We'll let you know. And then kicking us off at 9 p.m. Eastern will be the finale. We'll start off with part 3, crown a Final HOH, evict our 9th juror, and then get into a lovely question and answer portion that will eventually give us the winner of BBH18.
I'm literally so upset that it's almost over.
I'm sad it's over, but also like I'm happy to like.
But stay tuned for some great off-season content. We are cooking up some fun for you all.
Yeah.
You don't even have an idea of what's coming your way.
I need like 1 week to kind of like recollect myself and get my life back in order, and then I'm ready to do season 19. Like this is the most amped up for BBH that I feel like I've been in the last couple seasons. And I don't know if it's just that the season was so good or if the cast was great, but I'm like ready to jump back into it and do another season. So I know we won't, but like I'm ready.
We got some great things on the pipeline. Blake and Max, and I mean all of us really have posed all different off-season content ideas. So like be on the lookout. We've got some fun off-season content. If you're not in the BBH alumni server, even if you're not an alumni, please be in there because that's where we'll be doing all of that stuff. Like reach out to us. We'll post in the Discord tomorrow.
We're moving away from the Facebook page, I feel.
Yes,
so
we're moving away.
We're gonna try and do a lot of popping stuff in the Discord. So you got to be there if you want to participate.
Also, shameless plug, if you follow the sister org, we will be pumping out some information soon. So
yes, the True Sister Org Subversion.
Hey, it's our time.
Back to you. It's coming back to you.
It's our time to play Subversion.
It is.
With Marcus and with who else from this season is going to play, because I'm just working on my pre-made.
Pre-made.
Lauren, we got to get Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren and Marcus and Melody Lee and me and Shelby. So, hey, if you want them in the pre-made, let us know.
Get ready for Subversion Season 4, Battle of the Pre-Mades.
Lee didn't realize he had already had half the cast being already
decided. We're well aware that we already had half the cast coming. So.
Yeah, so stick with us tomorrow. It's over. It'll end. If you have not voted for your viewer fan favorite, please do that in the Google form below. It's so close who's winning right now, so every vote matters.
Every vote counts. Stay in line.
Girl, every vote matters. As long as you're in line when the polls close, we will get your vote.
Remember when I said at the top of the show that not everyone likes to lie, like Lee is like pathological?
Yeah.
I was excluding Carl from that narrative.
You know what?
Okay, I'm being honest that every vote counts. I am not being honest when I say the vote is close.
Never have we had a vote this close since BBH 14.
Bye. Get out of here. Take us offline.
BBH 15. It's BBH 15.
Take us offline right now. End the stream. Cut it.